to ARC Tutorials. This is Top 50 Agile Interview Questions with Answers. This is the part 1 of the 5-part series. You can get this PPT along with this entire content as an ebook at arctutorials.gumroad.com for free. So make sure that you grab your copy as well. That being said, let's get started. Alright, so the first and the most basic question that is often asked in interviews or to just start as an icebreaker between two candidate and the interviewer is, what do you mean by agile or agile methodology or agile process? The way you should answer is, agile methodology, as the name suggests, is a set of methods and practices where software development takes place to deliver customer-centric products. In Agile methodology, the development cycle is short and is known as sprints, usually of 2 weeks. It is an iterative approach and each iteration is specially designed to be small and manageable. Agile methodologies are open to changing requirements over time. Also, inform that customers are also involved during this particular process to give feedback and also participate in the requirements process. That is a basic definition that you should explain about Agile. Now, what are the different types of Agile methodologies? Now, remember friends, a lot of people think when they ask about what are the different types of Agile, they get confused. There are different types of Agile methodologies that can be followed in enterprises. Some of which are Scrum, Kanban, FTD, which is feature driven development, lean software development, extreme programming, crystal methodology, adaptive system development. So these are the 8 different types of agile methodologies, but oftenly if you used in most Fortune 500 companies, you would generally find Scrum, Kanban, FDD, XP. These are the commonly used agile methodologies. What do you understand by Scrum? Explain in brief. Scrum is a type of agile methodology which is used to establish hypotheses, test them, reflect on the experience and also make adjustments. Right? Scrum heavily depends on feedback, self-management, small teams and work broken into sprints. Scrum relies on incremental development. Right? So this is the more of a polished version, but if you have to explain, you can say that Scrum is based on heavily feedback driven. That means you get feedback after every iteration. You keep improving in every iterations. You keep incrementing your product in every 2 weeks, right? So that being said, it's a type of agile methodology which is used to establish hypotheses, quickly test them, right? So you produce an output in every 2 weeks and then you test them, then you keep incrementing, you keep growing your product. That is the basic understanding that you should explain about Scrum. Now, what do you understand by Kanban? Kanban projects are generally managed through a board or a table. The Kanban board is a tool that helps team members to keep an eye on workflow for measuring its progress and includes all the information that is needed to be done on the product at each stage along with its completion. So in short, if you want to explain, you can say that Kanban is a type of agile methodology where board is used or a table, right? So you have different columns like in progress, to do, and then you have completed, review, done, etc. So you move the tickets accordingly, right? So the main purpose is flexibility, continuous improvement, and enhanced workflow. Those are the advantages when you talk about Kanban. Now explain the difference between Agile and Scrum. Now a lot of people have confusion that Agile is Scrum, Scrum is Agile. No. Agile is a broad umbrella under which Scrum falls. Like I said in the earlier questions, Agile is a methodology of process, of methods, right? And Scrum is a type of Agile. Scrum consists of 4 primary values and 12 principles, right? Scrum has its own set of principles and values and provides a lighter framework to help team become agile, right? So think of Agile as a broad umbrella and Scrum is just a subset of it, right? So they don't get confused between Agile and Scrum. What are some of the advantages of Agile process? Some of the advantages of using the Agile process are as follows. You can adapt well with the changing requirement. So you can get changes in between sprints. Your product can change in the next sprint because the requirements are continuously evolving, right? Iterating. Face-to-face conversation with team members and customers focus on technical excellence with good design, fast and continuous development. Enables collaboration and interaction between client and project team. Faster feedback from customers, quickly test them, iterate every time through sprints and iterations. Easy to manage with more flexibility. When you are managing small piece of work, it's much easy to predict the outcome of it. The next is, what are some of the disadvantages of Agile process? Now this is a very important question because a lot of times people think the interviewers will only ask good things about it, but they'll talk about these as an experience, which is what are some of the disadvantages of Agile process. There are several disadvantages of using Agile process as given below. Lack of formal documentation and designing, right? So since the product is evolving, you wouldn't find any well documented code, or even for that matter there is no documentation of the product itself. It's very difficult to estimate the resource requirement and efforts, right? Since it's evolving, we keep adding functionality as we go along. It becomes really difficult to estimate the resource planning and how much time it's going to take, when are we going to complete, are we being on time. So that is something that is a disadvantage. It's not really good for small development projects because cost will be really high. Like if you talk about small budget projects and if you keep on extending it based on Agile, chances are that it would become really costly for you. Requires more time and energy from everyone. So that is another thing. Like I said, if there is no fixed goal, budget, cost, then it becomes really difficult and becomes more risky. Now, difficult to scale large projects, right? Because if you're talking about a really large project which has multiple Scrum teams, coordination, integration, data exchange, contracts, those becomes really difficult to manage. So you need another team to manage the team, right? So that's where it becomes really difficult to scale. Difficulty in testing and test construction of data. The project, as it becomes big, then it becomes really difficult to test end-to-end pieces, the integration pieces and those stuff. So those are some of the disadvantages that you should definitely talk about in the interview. How long does your sprint cycle last? Now this is a question that they are going to ask you for sure. The interviewer is trying to know if you already worked as a scrum master and know the basic things, right? So typically you should answer that typical sprint will last for 2 weeks, right? That is 10 working days and excluding the weekends. The sprint cycle usually starts on Tuesday or Wednesdays, Tuesdays mostly in most enterprises, and ends after 2 weeks again on Tuesday, right? With the sprint demo and review. Any client slash state slash federal declared holidays are considered and taken into account while starting the sprint or planning it. Now, which agile software tools does your company use? Now, here the interviewer is trying to know the different tools and apps that you have used in your experience. So talk about how you have handled projects using different tools like Jira, version 1, UTrack, ClipUp, Monday.com, or talk about your project management tool that you're using in your company. But if you're new, you don't know, do check out these apps, which is Jira, version 1, UTrack, and ClickUp. Now, the last question for today is what is the difference between sprint backlog and product backlog? Sprint backlog, it is generally owned by the development team. It only contains those features and requirements that are related to a specific sprint only. It is considered to be a subset of the product backlog. It is compiled of everything that must be done in a given particular sprint. So think of it that any stories that you add to be completed in a particular sprint. That is called your sprint backlog. Now think of it as a product. What is product backlog? It is owned by the project owner, right? Now it contains all the features, all the user stories in the entire product, right? So that is the entire superset. Sprint backlog is only related to that particular sprint. What needs to be done? What are the tickets which can be considered in a particular sprint is called sprint backlog. The entire set of all the user stories that are maintained by your project owner or product owner, which are to be completed as part of the entire product, is called your product backlog. All right, hope that answers the difference between sprint backlog and product backlog. All right, so I will continue this in the next part. In the meanwhile, please do get this PDF ebook for free at arctutorials.gumroad.com. If you have any questions, please write to me at surya.aradhya@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining in today's episode. I will continue this series. I hope you will join me in the next part as well. Thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, comment on the videos. Thank you again.